Jake Morrison stood at the big window of the space station and looked down at Earth, the blue and green planet turned slowly below him like it had done for millions of years. But Jake knew that everything had changed in the last 25 years. He was older now, with gray hair at his temples and lines around his eyes from too many battles and too much worry. The space station called Frontier Base floated in orbit around Earth. It was much bigger than the old stations from before the war. Jake could see other ships moving around the station like busy insects. Some were cargo ships bringing supplies and others were warships, painted in dark gray with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Jake remembered the day when everything changed. He had been a young soldier then, with bright eyes and no scars. The alien ships had come without warning. They were called the HFY, and they were hunters from another world far away. These aliens were not like anything humans had ever seen before. They stood 3 times taller than a man and had skin like armor plates. Their claws could cut through metal and their teeth were sharp like knives. The HFY had technology that made human weapons look like toys. Their ships moved faster than light and their guns could turn entire planets into dust. But they did not come to conquer Earth or steal its resources. They came to hunt humans for sport. To them, humans were just animals to be caught and killed for fun. Jake closed his eyes and remembered New Denver Colony, where he had been stationed. It was a peaceful place with farms and small towns where families lived quiet lives. The children played in the streets and the adults worked in the fields under 2 suns. Then the HFY ships appeared in the sky like dark clouds. The aliens had laughed when human soldiers tried to fight them. Their weapons bounced off HFY armor like raindrops. The hunting party had moved through the colony like death itself. Some humans they killed quickly with their claws. Others they took alive to fight in their arena ships for the entertainment of other aliens. Jake had hidden in a burning building for 3 days while the aliens finished their hunt. When rescue ships finally came, only 50 humans were left alive out of 10,000 colonists. Jake was one of them, but he was changed forever. The scared young soldier had died in that burning building and something harder had taken his place. Now, Jake was Commander Morrison and he ran the defense of this part of space. The years after the HFY attack had been the hardest in human history. Every person on every world knew that the aliens might come back. The government had spent all their money on new weapons and better ships. Scientists worked day and night to make humans stronger and smarter. Dr. Lisa Park walked up to stand beside Jake at the window. She was the chief scientist on the station and one of the smartest people Jake had ever met. But she looked different now than she had years ago. Her eyes were not normal human eyes anymore. They had been changed by surgery and computers to see things that regular eyes could not see. Lisa could spot a ship coming from very far away before any machine could detect it. Lisa looked worried as she stared out into space. Her strange new eyes were focused on something Jake could not see yet. She spoke in a quiet voice that made Jake feel cold inside. "The alien ships are coming back," she said. "I can see 15 of them moving toward us. They have the same shape as the hunting ships from before. The HFY have returned to finish what they started." Jake felt his heart beat faster, but his face stayed calm. He had been waiting for this day for 25 years. Every night he dreamed about it. Every morning he woke up thinking about it. The aliens thought they could come back and find the same weak humans they had hunted before. They had no idea what humanity had become. The communication system on the station started making noise. A message was coming in from the alien ships. Jake walked over to the control panel and pressed a button. The voice that came through the speakers was deep and rough like stones grinding together. The alien spoke in the trade language that most space travelers use. "Soft flesh humans," the voice said with what sounded like laughter. "Your kind gave us much fun before. We have come back to take more of you for our fighting rings. Get ready to be hunted again." Jake felt anger burn in his chest like fire. These creatures thought humans were still the same frightened prey they had slaughtered decades ago. They expected to find the same weak colonies and the same helpless people. But humanity had learned from pain and grown stronger through suffering. Jake pressed the button to send his own message back to the alien ships. His voice was steady and cold like winter ice. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of Frontier Base," he said. "You are not welcome in human space. Leave now, or you will face the results of your actions." The alien laughter came through the speakers again, louder this time. "The prey tries to scare the hunter," the voice said. "How amusing. We will enjoy breaking you slowly, soft flesh creature. You will learn again why we are the masters and you are just meat." But as the alien ships moved closer, Jake smiled for the first time in months. The Kethver were about to discover that their prey had evolved into something much more dangerous. The frightened humans they remembered were gone forever. In their place was something new and deadly that had been forged in the fire of that first terrible defeat. The hunt was about to begin again, but this time the roles would be very different. Dr. Lisa Park stood next to Jake and watched the alien ships grow larger on the view screen. But her mind was thinking about all the changes that had happened to her body over the years. The attack by the Kethver had forced humanity to make hard choices about what they were willing to become. Lisa remembered when she was just a normal human scientist. She had regular eyes and normal strength like everyone else. Her brain worked the same way human brains had worked for thousands of years, but after the alien attack everything changed. The government started programs to make humans better and stronger and smarter. The first changes were small. Scientists gave people medicine that made their bones harder and their muscles stronger. They changed the blood so it could carry more oxygen and heal wounds faster. But those changes were nothing compared to what came later. Lisa touched the side of her head where tiny machines lived inside her brain. These machines helped her think faster and remember more things. They connected her mind to computers so she could process information like a living machine. Sometimes she could feel the electricity running through her thoughts. Her eyes were the biggest change. The doctors had taken out her normal human eyes and put in new ones made from metal and crystal and living tissue. These new eyes could see light that humans had never seen before. They could spot tiny objects millions of miles away. They could see through walls and detect heat and movement. But Lisa was not the only one who had changed. Every human in space had been given improvements to their bodies. The children born after the Kethver attack were even more different from old humans. They were taller and stronger, and their brains worked faster than any human brain had ever worked. Captain Ryan Davis commanded the human war fleet from his ship called the Vengeance. Ryan had been a regular pilot before the aliens came. Now he was something between a human and a machine. His nervous system had been upgraded with computer parts that let him control his ship like it was part of his own body. Ryan could feel every part of his ship through the neural connections in his spine. When the ship turned, he felt it in his bones. When the weapons fired, he felt the energy flowing through his arms. The ship was not just a vehicle anymore. It was like another body that he lived inside. The ships themselves had changed just as much as the people who flew them. The old human ships had been slow and weak with armor made from simple metal. The new ships were built with materials that had never existed before. Their hulls could bend space and time to avoid damage. Their weapons could tear holes in reality itself. Lieutenant Amy Foster worked at the weapon controls on Ryan's ship. Amy was young enough that she had been born after the genetic improvement program started. Her reflexes were 10 times faster than old humans. Her eyes could track hundreds of targets at the same time. Her fingers moved across the controls faster than the eye could follow. The human colonies had changed too. The small towns and farms that the Kethver had destroyed were gone forever. In their place were fortress cities with walls made from energy fields. Underground bunkers housed factories that could build war machines in hours instead of months. Every human settlement was ready for war. Jake watched the alien ships through the station window and thought about how much everything had changed. The Kethver ships looked exactly the same as they had 25 years ago. The aliens had not improved their technology or changed their tactics. They were still using the same weapons and the same battle plans. This was the weakness that humanity had learned to exploit. The Kethver were apex predators on their own world. They had never needed to change or adapt because nothing had ever challenged them. They thought they were perfect, so they never tried to become better. But humans had learned that change was the only way to survive. When the aliens had shown them how weak they were, humans had decided to become something else entirely. They had used pain as a teacher and fear as motivation to transform their entire species. Dr. Lisa Park activated her enhanced neural interface and connected to the station computers. Information flowed through her mind like water through a pipe. She could see the alien ships approaching and analyze their weapons and shields and weaknesses. Her brain processed the data faster than any supercomputer the HFY were using. The same electromagnetic signatures as before. Their weapons operated on the same frequencies. Their shields used the same energy patterns. They had learned nothing from their first encounter with humanity, but humans had learned everything. They had studied every piece of alien wreckage. They had analyzed every weapon hit and every shield failure. Human scientists had reverse-engineered HFY technology and then improved it beyond what the aliens thought was possible. Captain Ryan felt his ship respond to his thoughts as he prepared for battle. The Vengeance was more advanced than anything the HFY had ever built. Its quantum phase armor could deflect any weapon the aliens possessed. Its antimatter cannons could punch through any defense the HFY could raise, but the real advantage was not in the ships or the weapons. It was in the minds of the humans who used them. The terror of that first attack had awakened something primal in the human spirit. They had remembered that their ancestors had once been hunters on the plains of Africa. They had recalled the instincts that had made them the dominant species on Earth. Amy Foster ran final checks on the weapon systems while her enhanced mind calculated firing solutions for every possible target. She felt no fear as she prepared to face the aliens who had once seemed invincible. Fear was a luxury that humans could no longer afford. The HFY ships moved into attack formation, believing they faced the same prey they had hunted before. They had no idea that their former victims had evolved into something far more dangerous. The soft flesh creatures they remembered had become apex predators in their own right. Jake opened a communication channel to all human ships in the area. His voice was calm but carried the weight of 25 years of preparation. "Today we find out if evolution is stronger than arrogance," he said. "Show these hunters what happens when prey learns to bite back." Thrakson the Render stood on the command deck of his hunting ship and felt satisfied as he looked at the human space station. The soft flesh creatures had built bigger structures than before, but they were still just prey animals. No prey had ever successfully fought back against the HFY. In all their history of hunting across the galaxy, Thrakson was the greatest hunter of his generation. His claws had torn through the armor of 100 different species. His teeth had tasted the blood of creatures from worlds that spanned half the galaxy. The scars on his armored hide told the story of battles against prey that had tried to fight back and failed. The other HFY on his ship looked at him with respect and fear. Thrakson was 3 meters tall even for his species, and his natural armor was thicker than most. His eyes glowed red in the dim light of the ship, and his voice could shake the walls when he roared in battle fury. But what made Thrakson truly dangerous was his intelligence. Unlike many hunters who relied only on strength and speed, he also used his mind to plan attacks and predict how prey would react. He had studied the humans during their first encounter and knew exactly how they thought and fought. The humans were weak creatures with soft skin and fragile bones. They relied on tools and machines because their bodies were not built for fighting. They were pack animals who worked together, but they panicked easily when their leaders were killed. They had no natural weapons and could be broken with the right amount of pressure applied in the right places. Thrakson decided to start with a demonstration that would remind the humans why they should fear the HFY. He pointed one of his clawed fingers at a small human outpost that orbited near the main station. The outpost looked like it might house 50 or 60 humans at most. "Destroy that facility," he ordered his weapons master. "Use minimum power. I want the humans to see what will happen to them, but I want some survivors to spread fear among the others." 3 of his escort ships moved toward the human outpost with their plasma cannons charging. Thrakson had used this tactic many times before. A quick demonstration of overwhelming force usually made prey surrender without much of a fight. It saved time and ammunition and left more live specimens for the hunting games. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Harper watched the alien ships approach his outpost and felt the familiar surge of combat drugs flooding through his enhanced bloodstream. Steve had volunteered for the most extreme body modifications available to humans. His skeleton was reinforced with metal alloys. His muscles had been rebuilt with synthetic fibers that were 10 times stronger than normal human tissue, but the most important changes were in his nervous system. Tiny machines in his brain could release precise amounts of chemicals that enhanced his reflexes and dulled his sense of pain. His reaction time was now measured in milliseconds instead of the tenths of seconds that normal humans needed. Steve activated the outpost defense systems and felt his heart rate slow to an almost mechanical rhythm. The combat drugs made everything seem to move in slow motion while his mind worked at superhuman speed. He could see the alien ships moving toward him and calculate their exact speed and trajectory. The outpost Steve commanded was not the simple research station it appeared to be. Hidden beneath its normal-looking exterior were weapon systems that had been designed specifically to fight Kethver technology. Human engineers had spent decades studying alien weaknesses and building tools to exploit them. The Kethver ships fired their plasma cannons, expecting to see the bright flash of total destruction that had always marked their victories before. The superheated energy beams struck the outpost shields and something impossible happened. Instead of vaporizing, the human structure of the plasma was absorbed and redirected harmlessly into space. Thrakson stared at his display screens in confusion. The energy readings showed that his ships had fired at full power. The plasma beams should have been more than enough to destroy any human facility. But the outpost was completely undamaged and its shields were still functioning at full strength. Steve Harper felt no emotion as he prepared to return fire. The combat drugs had suppressed his fear and anger, leaving only cold calculation. He activated the outpost main battery and targeted the alien ships with weapons that had never existed during the first Kethver attack. The antimatter beams that erupted from the outpost were invisible to normal eyes, but they carried enough energy to crack the core of a planet. The beams moved at nearly the speed of light and struck the Kethver ships before their pilots could even realize they were under attack. The first alien ship simply vanished in a flash of annihilation as its matter was converted directly into energy. The second ship had time to raise its shields, but the antimatter beam punched through the barriers like they were made of paper. The ship broke apart in a series of explosions that lit up the darkness of space. The third ship managed to turn away from the attack, but not fast enough to avoid critical damage. Its engines failed and its weapons went offline, leaving it drifting helplessly through space. Like a piece of debris, Thrakson felt something he had never experienced before in his long career as a hunter. For the first time in his life he was afraid. The soft flesh creatures had somehow acquired weapons that could destroy his ships in seconds. This was not supposed to be possible, but Thrakson had not become the greatest hunter of his generation by giving up when faced with dangerous prey. He had fought creatures with acid blood and others with hides that could deflect energy weapons. The humans had surprised him, but they were still just prey animals with better tools. All ships attack formation. He commanded his remaining vessels. The humans have acquired new weapons, but they are still weak creatures. We will overwhelm them with numbers and superior tactics. Prepare for full assault. 12 Kethver warships moved into battle formation and advanced on the human positions. Their weapons charged to maximum power and their shields strengthened to deflect return fire. Thrakson felt his confidence returning as he watched his fleet prepare for war, but Steve Harper was already transmitting tactical data to every human ship in the area. The enhanced humans processed the information in seconds and began coordinating their response. The Kethver were about to learn that their former prey had become something far more dangerous than they could imagine. The aliens advanced expecting to face frightened colonists with primitive weapons. Instead, they were moving toward enhanced soldiers who had spent decades preparing for this exact moment. The prey had evolved into predators, and the hunt was about to take a very different turn than Thraksin had planned. Captain Ryan Davis felt his ship respond to his thoughts as the Kethver fleet approached. The neural connections in his spine carried signals faster than normal human nerves could transmit. His enhanced brain processed tactical information while his hands moved across controls that seemed to anticipate his commands. The Vengeance was the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. Its quantum phase armor could shift between dimensions to avoid incoming fire. Its weapons drew power directly from controlled antimatter reactions that could fuel a small star. But most importantly, it could become invisible to any sensor system the Kethver possessed. Ryan activated the stealth systems and watched as his ship vanished from alien detection. The technology was based on Kethver designs that human scientists had captured and improved beyond what the original creators thought possible. Now human ships could hide in plain sight while their enemies searched blindly for targets that were right in front of them all around the battlefield. Other human ships were doing the same thing. One moment the Kethver faced a visible enemy fleet, and the next they were alone in empty space with only sensor ghosts and electromagnetic shadows to mark where their opponents had been. Thraksin felt his confidence begin to crack as his prey vanished from the screens. The Kethver had primitive stealth technology, but nothing like what the humans were displaying. His weapons officers searched frantically for targets while his sensors showed nothing but empty vacuum. This was wrong in ways that violated everything Thraksin understood about the natural order. Prey animals did not have advanced technology. They did not outmaneuver predators or disappear from sight like ghosts. They were supposed to run and hide and die when hunters found them. Dr. Lisa Park coordinated the human attack from her position on Frontier Base. Her enhanced mind processed data from dozens of ships while her computer implants calculated the perfect moment to strike. She could see the fear beginning to spread through the alien fleet as they realized their technological advantage had disappeared. The Kethver ships moved in defensive formation, while their sensors swept space looking for hidden enemies. But human cloaking technology made their vessels completely invisible to alien detection methods. The hunters had become the hunted, and they did not know how to react to their new situation. Lisa gave the attack signal through her neural link, and every human ship received the command simultaneously. The assault began from all directions at once as invisible predators materialized from empty space with their weapons already locked onto critical alien systems. Lieutenant Amy Foster felt time slow down as her enhanced reflexes took control. Her fingers danced across weapon controls while her modified eyes tracked multiple targets at the same time. The antimatter cannons of the Vengeance fired in perfect sequence, sending beams of annihilation toward the nearest Kethver ship. The alien vessel had no time to react before its shields collapsed under the concentrated fire. Its hull began to break apart as antimatter reactions tore through the ship like acid through paper. The crew barely had time to scream before their ship became an expanding cloud of superheated gas. All across the battlefield the same scene repeated itself. Human ships appeared from nowhere and struck with weapons that the Kethver could not defend against. Alien vessels that had dominated space for centuries found themselves helpless against prey that had evolved into apex predators. Thraksin watched his hunting fleet being systematically destroyed and felt something he had never experienced before. Terror ran through his body like ice water as he realized that his ships were no match for what the humans had become. The soft flesh creatures had somehow transformed into something more dangerous than any predator he had ever encountered. But Thraksin was still a hunter, and hunters did not give up easily. He ordered his remaining ships to concentrate their fire on the human station, hoping to destroy their command center. If he could kill their leaders, the rest might panic and make mistakes he could exploit. The Kethver ships turned toward Frontier Base and fired everything they had. Plasma cannons that could melt continents unleashed their fury at the human stronghold. Energy beams that had destroyed countless worlds converged on the station in a display of firepower that should have vaporized any target, but the station shields absorbed the attack without even flickering. The quantum phase barriers that protected. Human installations had been designed to withstand much more powerful weapons than anything the Kethver possessed. The aliens were using technology that was already obsolete by human standards. Jake Morrison watched the alien attack fail and felt a grim satisfaction. The creatures that had murdered his friends and destroyed his world were learning what it felt like to be helpless. The roles had completely reversed, and now the Kethver were the ones facing extinction, Ryan Davis brought his ship around for another attack run while his neural implants calculated the most efficient way to destroy the remaining alien vessels. The Vengeance moved like a living thing, responding to his thoughts and emotions. Its weapons charged automatically as his subconscious mind selected targets. The next wave of human attacks struck the Kethver fleet like lightning from a clear sky. Ships that had terrorized half the galaxy found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by prey that had learned to think like predators. The aliens tried to retreat, but human vessels were faster and more maneuverable than anything they had ever faced. Amy Foster destroyed 2 more alien ships with precisely targeted shots that struck their engines and weapon systems. Her enhanced reflexes let her place her fire with surgical precision, while her modified brain calculated the exact angles needed to penetrate enemy armor. She felt no emotion as she watched the alien crews die in the vacuum of space. Thrakson realized that his hunting expedition had become a disaster beyond his worst nightmares. More than half his ships were destroyed or crippled, and the humans showed no signs of slowing their attack. The prey had become predators, and they were better at hunting than the Kethver had ever been. For the first time in his long career as a hunter, Thrakson considered retreat. But retreat meant admitting that prey animals had defeated him, and that was something his pride could not accept. He would rather die fighting than live with the shame of being beaten by creatures he had always considered inferior. But as another of his ships exploded in a ball of plasma, Thrakson began to understand that pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. The humans had evolved beyond anything he thought possible, and continuing to fight would only result in the complete destruction of his fleet. The greatest hunter of his generation was about to learn the hardest lesson of all. The battle was ending, and Thrakson could not believe what he was seeing. Of his 15 hunting ships, only 3 remained functional, including his own command vessel. The rest were either destroyed completely or drifting powerless through space, with their crews dead or dying. The greatest hunting fleet in Kethver history had been reduced to wreckage by creatures he had considered nothing more than prey animals. Thrakson looked around his damaged bridge and saw fear in the eyes of his crew. These were warriors who had faced the most dangerous predators in the galaxy without flinching. They had hunted creatures with acid for blood and others with claws that could cut through solid metal. But they had never faced anything like the transformed humans. The communication system on his ship crackled to life, and a human voice came through the speakers. Thrakson recognized the voice as belonging to the human commander who had spoken to him earlier. But now the voice carried a confidence and authority that made the alien hunter feel small and weak. Commander Jake Morrison appeared on the view screen, and Thrakson could see that this human was different from the frightened colonists he remembered. Jake's eyes held no fear, only a cold intelligence that reminded Thrakson of the apex predators from his own world. This was not prey speaking to a hunter. This was one predator addressing another. You came here expecting to find the same weak humans you slaughtered 25 years ago, Jake said in a voice as steady as stone. But you taught us that only the strong survive, and we learned that lesson better than you ever imagined. We took your cruelty and used it to become something you could never understand. Thrakson tried to speak, but found that his voice was caught in his throat. The confident roar that had terrified countless prey species was reduced to a whisper. How was this possible? He finally managed to say, "You are prey animals. Weak and soft and helpless. This cannot be real." Darlisa Park's face appeared beside Jake on the screen, and Thrakson could see that her eyes were not normal human eyes anymore. They glowed with an inner light that seemed to look directly into his soul. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "We were weak," she said, "but we chose to become strong. We were soft, but we made ourselves hard. We were helpless, but we learned to help ourselves. Your attack taught us that the universe is not safe for the weak, so we decided to stop being weak. We evolved because you forced us to evolve, Captain. Ryan Davis joined the transmission from his ship, and Thrakson could see that this human moved with the fluid grace of a natural predator. There was something in his eyes that reminded the alien of the hunting cats from his homeworld. These creatures had learned to think like killers. Every human colony is now defended by soldiers. Like us, Ryan said with quiet pride, every human ship carries weapons that can destroy fleets like yours. Every human child is born stronger and smarter and more dangerous than the generation before. You wanted to harvest us for your arenas, but instead you created an entire species of apex predators. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Harper appeared on screen from his outpost, and Thrakson could see the results of human enhancement technology in the man's modified body. Steve moved with mechanical precision while his enhanced eyes tracked multiple targets simultaneously. This was not evolution. This was transformation into something entirely new. You thought we would always be prey, Steve said in a voice devoid of emotion, but we studied everything about you. We learned how you think and how you fight and how you die. We built weapons specifically designed to kill Kethver. We enhanced our bodies to match your physical capabilities. We trained our minds to think like hunters instead of victims. Lieutenant Amy Foster added her voice to the transmission, and Thrakson could see that she was young enough to have been born after the enhancement programs began. She represented the future of humanity, and that future was terrifying to contemplate. These new humans were designed from birth to be warriors. My generation has never known fear of aliens, Amy said with the confidence of someone who had never been prey. We were taught from childhood that humans are the apex predators of this galaxy. Your species hunted us once, but that will never happen again. We have become something that hunts the hunters. Jake Morrison delivered the final ultimatum, and his words carried the weight of an entire species that had chosen evolution over extinction. You have two choices, Thrakson, he said. Return to your homeworld and never enter human space again, or join your destroyed ships as debris floating in the void. Choose quickly, because my patience is limited. Thrakson looked around his bridge at the faces of his surviving crew members. He could see that they were broken by what they had witnessed. The greatest hunters in the galaxy had been defeated by prey animals that had refused to remain prey. The natural order that had defined Kethver society for thousands of years had been shattered by creatures they had underestimated. The alien commander realized that he had no choice. To continue fighting would mean the complete destruction of his remaining ships and the death of every warrior under his command. The prey had become predators, and they were better at predation than the Kethver had ever been. We will leave, Thrakson said in a voice that was barely a whisper. His pride was destroyed, and his confidence was shattered. The greatest hunter of his generation had been humbled by creatures he had once considered. Beneath notice, the human ships moved aside to create a corridor for the retreating Kethver vessels. But Thrakson could see that they remained ready to attack if he changed his mind. These transformed humans showed mercy, but it was the mercy of a superior predator, allowing inferior creatures to escape as his damaged ships limped toward the edge of human space. Thrakson understood that everything had changed. The galaxy would learn that humanity was no longer prey. The message would spread from world to world that the soft flesh creatures had evolved into something far more dangerous than any natural predator. Jake Morrison watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace and felt a satisfaction that went deeper than revenge. The species that had once cowered before alien hunters had transformed itself into the apex predators of known space. Evolution had triumphed over stagnation, and growth had defeated arrogance. Darlisa Park reflected on the transformation that had remade humanity from victims into victors. The pain of that first attack had been the catalyst for changes that had elevated the entire species. Humans had learned that survival required constant adaptation, and they had adapted beyond anything their enemies thought possible. The age of human prey was over forever. The age of human predators had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.